Chase at the 40. Look at that move. Look at Chase go. Oh, my goodness. What a gear.
He comes down to this in his car end zone. Intercepted.
McPherson. And Cincinnati is heading to the Super Bowl.
Toss here. Mixon's going to throw. Open man. Caught. Higgins touchdown.
Drives. Touchdown. Joe Burrow has his first rushing touchdown of the season.
Hooday, Bengal fans. He is Maan. I am Jake. This is the Bengals Pulse, the heartbeat of our victorious Cincinnati Bengals. Maan. We take a breath here. We take a breath, Bengal fans, after the big win on Sunday. We have a lot to talk about in our episode tonight. But before we do, Maan, how has your week been going?
It's been going great. It was good to get that win on Sunday. It was a stressful week leading up to that, but getting a win is always great. It's my son's birthday today, so I want to wish him a happy 22nd. Way to go, Jake. We're proud of you. And NBA basketball kicks off tonight. I'm excited about that. I'm a Sixer fan, so let's go Sixers. But let's keep this winning streak going. Let's beat the Falcons this week.
Absolutely. It's very, very good week for me so far. Obviously, big win on Sunday. Last night, we had a makeup game from the Hurricane. Won a big district game, 53-7. So proud of my guys. Yes, I'm excited. We moved to 6-2, 2-0 in the district. We got another big district game this Friday night. And yes, a big shout out to your son, Jake Han Solo Abelhassan. A real quick story, listeners. I gotta tell a story. You were gonna name your son Han, right? Han or Han Solo? It was Han.
We were, yes. Our first son, his name is Luke, and we were going to name Jake Han. And it was really, really close, and we changed it at the last minute to Jake Ryan Abelhassan because we love 16 Candles. That's one of our all-time favorite movies, and we named him after the main character in that movie, Jake Ryan.
Well, for all of our listeners out there, I am so pissed at Maan about this that I still call Jake Han Solo. I actually texted him today, happy birthday, Han Solo. I refuse to call him Jake because Han Solo would have been awesome. It's funny, Mom, because my oldest son is Luke as well, right? Very interesting, and I'm a big Star Wars guy as well. So, yes, happy birthday to Han Solo. We have a big episode tonight to talk about. We got a lot to unpack. Even in a victory, what a crazy football game on Sunday, Maan. Absolutely insane. You and I didn't get to watch the game together, but there was a lot of texting going on.
Oh boy, yeah.
Oh boy. Just an insane game. I got some crazy stats to go over to throw out there that I don't think people realize how much crazy things happened in this football game. Obviously, the Bengals beat the Saints 30-26 in a barn burner. Mon, real quick, what are your quick takes from the football game on Sunday before we go over the stats?
It was a tale of two halves when it comes to the defense. I was really alarmed with the rushing yards that the Saints accumulated, 160-plus rushing yards. A lot of them on missed tackles. That 44-yard jet sweep was ugly. There was a couple other plays where the Bengal defenders were there to make the stop, and they just didn't do it. And, again, the second half was much better. I think the Saints only had 56, 60 yards rushing in the second half, and that led to our victory. That helped lead to our victory. But the offense definitely carried us this game. And, we talked about this off air. I tell you, the 4 games that the Bengals have played, they played the Ravens. They've, obviously played the Saints. They got to play the Falcons next week, and they got to play the Browns after that. That's 4 of the top 5 rushing teams in football. And it's a bad time to have DJ Reader
Bad time.
and Josh Tupou injured. So, you know
Logan,
what?
and Logan Wilson.
Yeah,
right?
and Logan Wilson. I'm wearing his jersey right now. I have faith in Lou Anarumo. I think out of all the coaches on this staff, he does a great job of adjusting. Let's face it, that defensive line was really undersized in the second half. I mean, Tuafele, Hill, and Zach Carter, they're 295 to 310 pounds. They're not the biggest defensive linemen, but they made it work. And, I salute them for that because they don't have that big body right now, and they need one. I expect Tyler Shelvin or Dominique Davis to get picked up before the Falcon game from the practice squad. But, yeah, it was – you're right. It was a goofy game, and I was really down. But then that second half, Joe Burrow carried us.
Well, let's talk about the stats real quick of this football game. As you said, Joe Burrow back to his old self. I mean, I think we saw some things Sunday that we expect to see every Sunday, and we haven't so far. But it looked like the old Joe Cool from last year. He looked very comfortable in the pocket, used his legs, his mobility to make some big plays as well. Again, something that we haven't seen a lot of this year. So hopefully that comfortability and maybe this offensive line is starting to gel a little bit and put some things together. But let's look at the stats real quick. Burrow, 28 of 37, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was sacked 3 times, but had a 126 quarterback rating, which is pretty good, pretty solid. Also had 4 carries on the ground for 25 yards and obviously that big 19-yard touchdown run. Joe Mixon, 8 carries for 45 yards. He did have 4 receptions for 23 yards and a big touchdown reception. Jamar Chase, again, we're talking about Joe Burrow back to his old self. Maybe we're seeing signs of this offense really starting to move forward. It looked like the old Jamar Chase, 7 receptions, 132 yards, 2 touchdowns, and we saw signs of that touchdown against Kansas City last year, that big touchdown that got the Bengals back into that football game. Sunday we saw Jamar Chase take a curl route, a simple curl route, and beat 2 defenders for a 60-yard touchdown, which ended up being the game winner. Tyler Boyd, 6 receptions for 66 yards. T. Higgins back in the lineup, 6 catches for 47 yards. Hayden Hurst, 3 catches for 21 yards. Defensively, Jermaine Pratt, once again, the leading tackler on this defense. Obviously, Logan Wilson went out, so that that hurt. But Jermaine Pratt, 14 tackles, Maan. 14 tackles for Jermaine Pratt. Sam Hubbard, 7 tackles with a half sack. Eli Apple, Tuafele, who you talked about earlier, both with 6 tackles. And B.J. Hill also with 6 tackles. He had the other half of that sack that Sam Hubbard had. Chris Evans, once again, we're seeing that explosiveness from that kickoff return game. 2 on Sunday for 48 yards. And then Evan Money Mac McPherson, 1-for-1 field goal, a big 52-yard field goal. Again, he has now made, I think, 7 or 8 50-yard field goals in a row or something crazy like that. So again, those stats offensively, as you said, they look great. The run game, obviously the Bengals still struggling with the run game, but they're playing behind pretty much this entire game. I don't think they took the lead until, a minute 58 left in the game. So, had to come out and throw the ball around the yard. We got to get this run game going, Mon. Again, Bengals really struggling running the football, which is something that you and I both thought was not going to be an issue. But it was on Sunday. Who didn't have an issue running the football, Mon? That is the New Orleans Saints. And we're going to talk about our defense. And you touched on it a little bit early on in the show. But, man, defensively, we struggled, especially against the run. And, I think going into that game as a fan, I know you and I were both thinking, hey, this is going to we're going against Dalton and Taysom Hill, and the Saints are down 3 receivers, 3 of their best players. Taquan Smith, a UCF guy, was really their best receiver they put on the field, and he's a good player, but obviously not to the caliber of Olave and Michael Thomas and those guys. But we really, going in thinking this Bengal defense is going to feast, but they struggle, man. The Saints well over 200 yards on the ground. Again, man, we got to find a way. You talked about it earlier. DJ Reader, not having him right now in the lineup is absolutely hamstringing this Bengals defense.
Yeah, don't forget, the Saints ran for 235 the week before against the Seahawks. They're one of the top 3-4 rushing teams in football. It's amazing how effective they are because their passing game, the receivers have been hurt for a few weeks, has really been non-existent. But, listen to Lou Anarumo's press conference. And, of course, he's coming out. He's in damage control a little bit. But they had 3 rush plays for over 100 yards. And, again, there was multiple missed tackles. The one, there was a 30-plus yard run by Taysom Hill. Zach Carter had him for a 1-yard gain, max, but he bounced right off of him. It was a clean shot. You got to make that tackle. You got to make that tackle.
Absolutely.
Listen, they ran the ball. The Saints had 70 offensive snaps. The Bengals had 54, 55 offensive snaps. That has got to improve. The Bengals, you did mention the running game. They only had 14 rush attempts last Sunday against the Saints. Now, out of those 14, they did get 75 yards. That's over 5 yards per carry, but 14 rush attempts. They need to be a little more than that. Now, some people say, I did hear Lapham say it. It's a little misleading because they did have the short passing game. You could always say the short passing game is the equivalent of a rush attempt because they were very successful picking up 5, 6, 7 yards on little swing passes. But I would like to see the team get more than 14 rush attempts a game. I think the Bengals had the ball 27 minutes. The Saints had it 32. We only had the ball 3 times in the second half. That's 2 weeks in a row. Crazy. Why is that? Because other teams are running the ball against us. I do like a little glimmer of hope. Like I said, they did contain them in the second half a little bit. I was really impressed with Tuafele. He looked really good and active. But let's face it, he's not Reader, and Tapau. Listen, Josh was playing really well for the Bengals, and losing him for a few weeks is going to hurt. But like I said a few minutes ago, I believe in Lou Anarumo. He's going to devise a scheme. He's going to get some players in there. I expect the Falcons to run the ball well, but I think the Bengals are going to pull it out and contain them and win the game this week against the Falcons.
Well, real quick, we're talking about DJ Reader, and obviously you and I are big fans of him. I think he's one of the best defensive players in football, not just on the Bengals, but in the NFL. I think he's the best nose tackle in the NFL. With DJ Reader in the lineup, the Bengals are 8th in rushing, defensive rushing, yards allowed. Without him, they are 24th, Maan. 8th to 24th. That's how important DJ Reader is to this Bengals defense. And, again, we talked about it when he got hurt. That's the one guy on defense that you can't replace. You just can't replace the DJ Reader. And the Bengals are going to have to figure out a way. And I hope you're right about Lou, but Lou is going to have to figure out a way to, we are without Reader for the next couple weeks. He's got to find a way to supplement that productivity on defense. And now with Josh Tapau out and possibly Logan Wilson missing a couple weeks, this Bengals defense is going to have to tighten it up, especially that front 7. We quickly just touched on it there. Logan Wilson, Josh Tapau, both injured in this football game. I think they said Tapau is week to week, and Logan Wilson is he still day to day, or is he week to week as well?
They said Tapau's at least 2, maybe 3 weeks. I guess Wednesday's the big day for Logan Wilson. He's having a lot of tests done, and they'll have a definitive more clarity on Wednesday concerning him.
And it's the shoulder. It's the shoulder that he had surgery on. Correct?
Yes, it is. He sent out a tweet last night, or it might have been on Instagram. It's something about God's will. I find that concerning. I hope he doesn't think it. I hope it's nothing bad. Let's put it that way. And
he's one of the best. He's one of the best inside linebackers in the NFL. As far as covering, obviously, the Bengals only played 2 backers really, so he plays kind of that will backer. So he does drop in coverage a lot as well. But he's elite as far as I'm concerned. And again, another guy the Bengals cannot afford to lose is Logan Wilson. So hopefully, we're seeing productivity from Jermaine Pratt, but obviously, Pratt is not the same coverage linebacker as Logan Wilson is. And I think it might be interesting to see if the Bengals start playing a couple of those bigger safeties, put them down in the box and have them try to play a hybrid linebacker type of safety position.
Well, you remember last year when Logan Wilson was injured, the reserves came in and played really solid. And don't forget, when he was injured last year, Gaither was out also. So he's healthy this year. Jermaine Pratt, Marcus Bailey, Bocce's always is on IR. He could return. They do have some decent pieces. It is a drop off. They're not Logan Wilson, but still they're solid players. And hey, if it's 2, 3, 4 weeks, I think we'll be all right. Let's get them healthy and get them back for the stretch run after the bye.
Well, let's talk about real quick. I want to go back because you had kind of mentioned it earlier with the time of possession. Listen to this crazy stat, Mom. And again, when you and I are watching the game, you're thinking to yourself, man, the offense has not been on the field for a long time. But this is how long the offense was not on the field at one point in this football game. So after Burrow's touchdown run, we talked about it earlier, the 19-yard touchdown run, that was with 5 minutes and 53 seconds left in the second quarter. Okay, so about 6 minutes left before half when Joe Burrow scored that touchdown. Mon, the next time Joe Burrow and that Bengals offense touched the ball, there was 7 minutes and 6 seconds left in the third quarter. Paul Dehner tweeted that out. That's insane, Mon. That is insane. That's almost a quarter of football that the Bengals offense did not touch the ball. And I know we've talked about it earlier. This Bengals defense, it's always the bend but don't break. That's kind of the Lou Anarumo thing. And that's okay. But it's starting to get to a point where, 3 possessions a half for this Bengals offense is not going to do it. This Bengals defense has got to get off the field on third down. I asked you, off air. We were just talking right before the show, and it just popped in. I'm thinking, what is the Bengals' third down? The third down rate as far as getting off the field. It's got to be bad. I mean, it can't be very good. It feels like defensively we give up a lot of third downs. Again, we're not giving up a lot of points. I understand that. But, when you have an offense like ours, those teams are in these games because Joe Burrow is sitting on the bench a lot of the time because our defense can't get off the field. And giving up field goals is a good thing, but, losing the time of possession every game is not a good thing, Mon.
Well, let's hold on. Let's go back a little bit. You're talking about 2 weeks. You're not talking about the whole year. They gave up 235. They gave up a lot of yards to the Ravens. The Ravens game, they only had 3 possessions. The Saints, they had 3 possessions. That's 2 games. That's troublesome. I agree with you. But let's just see if that becomes a big trend. I don't want to downplay what they've done in the second half. No touchdowns allowed in the second half all season. That's unheard of. That's special. That's good.
Let me tell you real quick. I don't mean to interrupt, but let me tell you how unheard of it is. Because Jay Morrison tweeted this out. Again, the Bengals have not given up, like you said, a second half touchdown all year. That 6-game stretch is the longest stretch since 2000.
Yes.
Since 22 years, Mon.
Yeah,
22
that's
years since a team has done that. That's
yes.
incredible.
Yeah, that is amazing. Just to get back on that one thing, there is absolutely no doubt the offense carried us this game. You did mention that gap, how long it, is 13 plus minutes that the offense didn't even touch the ball. When they did get the ball in the third quarter with 7 minutes left, it took them 3.5 minutes to score. That's how quick it was.
Yeah.
And that basically scoring that fast helped us get another possession eventually.
Yeah.
And the offense was really special. I loved it. I hope that, like Joe Burrow said, I hope they found their rhythm. And if they start playing similar to how they played last year, man, we're going to go on a nice, decent run. And I'm just, it was refreshing to see, and seeing, Chase with that 60-yard, it was basically a walk-off touchdown. That was special. That's the highlight of this season so far for me.
Well, let me talk about that. You just led me into another crazy stat. You know I'm a stat guy. I love these crazy stats. Listen to this. All right. So Jamar Chase's game winner, okay, the 60-yarder you just talked about. It happened with a minute 57 on the clock, right? 1 minute 57 on the clock. We just talked about it. That's a first lead of the game for the Bengals. That was the first game winner of 60 yards or more in the final 2 minutes of a game, or in a regulation or overtime game, since week 14 of 2018. Do you remember the play in 2018? Well, the Miami Dolphins remember it because it was the Kenyon Drake play.
Oh,
do you remember
okay.
that?
Okay. Yeah, I do remember that.
So that
yes.
that is the last. That's the last time a walk-off with, well, we say walk-off, but really under 2 minutes of 60 yards or more. Again, that explosiveness that Jamar Chase has is special. It's special, and we got to find a way. I don't know what the Saints were thinking at that moment in the game, but basically, one-on-one with a high safety. And we saw what happened when teams try to do that. We know why we've been seeing a lot of zone coverage, because Jamar Chase gets that second level. And I'm telling you what, Tyrann Mathieu is a good football player, but Jamar Chase hit that second gear, and Tyrann Mathieu had no chance at all of even.
No, he did.
It didn't matter if they were playing flag football, Mon. He wouldn't have been able to pull his flag. I mean, he had no chance. He had no chance on that Jamar Chase play.
He did not. I'm going to go back to what Dave Lapham said about that. He was mentioning the Bengals only ran the ball 14 times. We talked about that earlier, but they had numerous plays, short passes that, basically that's the equivalent of a run. They said that the safety started cheating up a little bit. They had to, because they were getting nickel and dimed and killed. And I don't know what they were thinking on that 60-yard pass. I'm glad they did it. I hope I hope the Falcons do it this week. But I swear Chase is so physical. He looks like a running back out there. He is a special athlete. And you know what, man? He can take over a game. And let's get this going, man. Let's win 5, 6, 7 in a row. I think we can do it. I really do.
I tell you what, when last year we heard a lot of comparisons to Anquan Bolden, Jamar Chase to Anquan Bolden, because of his physicality and his size. And you're starting to really see that in Jamar Chase. I think the only difference is Jamar Chase is more explosive than Anquan Bolden was. Physically, I see the comparison, but his second level speed is unreal. We saw it against the Chiefs last year. We saw it against the Ravens last year. And now we see it against the Saints. When this guy gets to the second level, Mon, it's over. It is over. And you see why these teams now are trying to bracket him and play, quarters in cover 2. They're trying to get as many guys at that second level just in case Jamar Chase gets to that second level. Let's go back real quick to what you were talking about before, because I put this in my notes. I found it very interesting. right? A reporter asked, I'm not sure who it was, but a reporter asked Joe Burrow about the identity of this offense. And you and I talked about it on last week's show. Well, I probably yelled about it a little bit. I think I could hear myself in the audio pounding on my desk the entire time. But I think I yelled
multiple times.
multiple times. But Joe Burrow, when asked that, said, I think we know who we are now. And I found that very interesting in a game where Joe Burrow throws it 40 times for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. I find that interesting, Mon, and I don't know what to take from that. I'm not so sure Joe Burrow is saying, listen, give me the ball. Something that we as Bengal fans have been talking about for 2 years now. Give me the ball. Like you said, they rushed the ball 14 times. Do you find that interesting that he said that at that moment? Like, I think we know who we are. We know who we are is I am an elite quarterback. Put the ball in my hand. And I don't think that's an ego thing with Joe. I think it's more of I am confident. I want the ball in my hand type of a thing. What do you think? Did you find it that interesting?
Yeah. Listen, it was, I think in the heat of the moment, is their best offensive production all year. He was in Louisiana. He was a 3 touchdown passes. He ran for 1. His best friend caught a 60-yarder. Everything clicked for him. And, listen, it's just in that moment he felt like, hey, I think we can do this. A short passing game. They didn't run much, but when they did run, they were fairly effective, over 5 yards per carry. And I feel like, he's just feeling really confident. He's feeling it. And like, hey, I think we got all those cobwebs out. We got we're adjusting to the defenses, the way they're playing us. And he just feels like, hey, man, that light switch is on now. And look out, they expect to do this every week.
Well, I'll tell you what, if that light switch is on, look out. Because this Bengals team it can be explosive very quick. But again, we talk about, I'm going to go back to the defense. And again, I'm not trying to take anything away from how well our defense has played. Our defense is special. They're special. You and I have talked about it. And as much as you and I go back about offense and defense, listen, defense wins you championships. The defense is one of the reasons why we were in the Super Bowl, one of the big reasons why we were in the Super Bowl last year. But this defense, this bend but don't break thing, the defense has got to start making plays. And what I mean by that is they have got to not only get off the field on third down, Mom, but they've got to start creating turnovers. They've got to start landing those sacks on the quarterback, because quarterback pressures are great, Mon, but sacks and turnovers, they flip field position, right? Quarterback hurries don't flip field position. Turnovers and sacks are what flip field positions, and that's why these teams spend so much money on pass rushers and defensive backs that can make plays, because everyone understands it flips the field position, and the defense right now is not helping this offense do that. Again, I'm not trying to take anything away, but the New Orleans Saints on Sunday, Mon, scored on 6 of 8 possessions. 6 of 8 possessions before those last 2. I'm not counting the last 2 because the defense made a great, 2 great stops at the end of the game. But 6 of 8 possessions, whether you're kicking field goals or not, throwing a touchdown here and there, that is not going to get it done. This defense has got to start making plays. We saw it last year, Mon. We saw the turnovers. We saw those unconventional touchdowns, right? The turnovers from touchdowns. We saw big sacks. Again, only 1 sack on Sunday. This team is not getting pressure on the quarterback, and they're not getting turnovers. And when we talk about the offensive struggles, yes, they are real. But this defense, you got to play complementary football, and part of that is getting turnovers and getting sacks.
I agree with a lot that you say, Jake. They played their worst game of the season. Stats show it. The eyeball test show it. We saw it with our eyes. They struggled. Listen, maybe this is just me being a homer. I know Trey Hendrickson, for example, only has 2.5 sacks. I'm sorry, I think he's just as dominant as he was last year. His sacks aren't showing it, but that guy is putting pressure. that pressure affects the quarterback. Yes, would I love to have the sack? Absolutely, I would. But I think he's been just as effective as he has been last year. Maybe his sack numbers are a little lower. Um, we talked about it, no doubt about it. The rushing yards are troublesome. It limits possessions for the offense. They got to work on it. I think we know what's going on. It's not a philosophical thing. It's not a scheme issue. It's DJ Reader being out and Josh Chappelle being out. That's huge. You said it earlier. DJ Reader's one of the top nose tackles, if not the top in football. And I think that's where we're struggling right now. Only having 3 possessions in the second half this week and the week before, I think there's a blueprint there for teams to come after us. And we need to be careful. The Falcons ran the ball 40 times against the 49ers. 40. I expect that number again this week. So we're going to go heavy on the defensive line. We're going to go all out to stop the run. And, of course, we need our offense to be efficient because they might only get the ball 3 or 4 times in the second half, but hopefully they can carry us. And you're right, complimentary football. We've needed it. We haven't had it all year. And I'll say it right now. Yeah, I'll be a defensive homer. They've been the MVP of the season for us. I'm not going to have one game say that they haven't. They've been the best part of the Bengals in 2022. And now it's time for that offense, especially with Reader injured, Logan Wilson injured. We need our offense to put up 28, 30 points a game because let's face it, the defense they're going to have to tread water until these guys get back.
Well, I think another part of that too is, Mon, and this is on the offensive side of the ball. Coach Taylor talked about it before the game. The sidelines reporter, that's all they were talking about was, Zach Taylor, hey, we got to start fast. We got to start fast. Because you know why, Mon? We haven't started fast.
Yes.
We haven't started fast. This offense has got to come out and fire on all cylinders from the opening kickoff. Listen to this stat, Mon. This is crazy. Lance McAllister tweeted this out. I just found it just absolutely insane. And, you're watching the games and you're at the games and you're kind of not putting it all together because there's so much going on. But listen to this. The Bengals trailed the Steelers 17-3. Loss. The Bengals trailed the Cowboys 17-3. Loss. The Bengals trailed the Ravens 10-0. Loss. The Bengals trailed the Saints 17-7. Win.
Yes.
Mon, that is not a blueprint of winning football at any level, Mon. At any level. It changes the entire aspect of the game. What you have to do defensively and what you have to do offensively completely changes when you are playing behind the sticks, so to speak, when it comes to the scoreboard. This Bengals football team, and let's look at it, Mon. Steelers were trailing 17-3. Should have had the walk-off extra point. It goes into overtime. Cowboys were trailing 17-3. We tied up. We let them drive down the field and score on the last play of the game. Ravens, we trailed 10-0. We take the lead with 2 minutes left. This Bengals team cannot wait until the last 5 minutes of the game to start playing. They just can't do that. They're not going to accomplish what they should accomplish when they are playing behind in every single football game. And as Bengal fans, it's frustrating, right? Because we're sitting there like, you have all these weapons on offense. How is it we are not going down the field and scoring? And I know some coaches feel like, oh, we just, as offensive coordinators, we make a play call sheet. We call from the sheet. Sometimes we deviate a little bit from it, but you want to try to stick on schedule. The Bengals cannot just come out and say, you know what, let's go through this drive and see what works, put our defense on the field and go from there. This Bengals offense has got to start coming out and scoring right away. And let's let the defense play with the lead, right? And maybe that's when the turnovers and the sacks start to happen. Again, complementary football is the only way that you're going to win at any level. And the Bengals just are not playing complementary football right now.
Jake, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. a lot of the common themes in the games that we lost, the Steeler game, the Cowboy game, the Raven game, we've talked about it on previous podcasts. How many times, the Bengals did not win on first down? They'd get a yard, it'd be 2nd and 9. Next, 3rd and 7. What was different in the Saints game? The Bengals would get 7, 8 yards on first down on a lot of plays. They would get a 6-yard rush. They'd get a swing pass for 5 or 7 yards. When you're 2nd and 3, 2nd and 4, it opens up your offense. I think you become more efficient.
100%.
And like the Bengals really, they look so different against the Saints because I think they were in short yardage a lot more than they were in some of these other games. We were at the Steeler game, and it was like 2nd and 9, 2nd and 12. It was frustrating. And,
we also got sacked 7 times.
Absolutely, yeah. The Cowboy game was the worst one. 2nd and 9, 2nd and 8, or 2nd and 15, a penalty or whatever. It was just ridiculous. And it's just hard. I think it limits your playbook. It limits what Zach Taylor can do. I tell you, if we can get 5, 6 yards a pop on first down, even 4 yards, that's great. And I think I wish I had the stats to break it down, but the eyeball test, I know that the Bengals against the Saints on second down, they were getting good yards on first down. They were winning first down, and I hope they continue doing that. I hope they continue doing it.
We're still not where we need to be as far as short yardage goes. We saw another short yardage. Not a good play call there, but it is what it is. But another frustrating moment where this football team, you just don't understand when we get into 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, it's like, again, we talked about it. I know we just keep pounding the sand on this, but you have a 245-pound running back, quarterback sneak with an athletic quarterback like Joe Burrow. It works. The wedge play with the quarterback, it works. Run it. It's okay to run it. I found this interesting too. I saw this stat. 54 snaps. You talked about it. The Bengals only ran 54 plays. 52 of those 54 snaps were out of shotgun. The only 2 that weren't, the quarterback sneak for a first down and the knee at the end of the game, the victory formation. Again, I think maybe some of those things being said last week to Coach Taylor maybe sunk in a little bit. Like, we are maybe tipping our hats. I'll tell you this much. When Stanley Morgan's in the game, you pretty much know what's coming. I think that's part of this Bengals team trying to find its identity, right? And maybe its identity is spread them out and line up in shotgun. Maybe that's what Joe Burrow meant by, I think we found our identity. What do you think?
Yeah, it could be. They're just very efficient against the Saints. You mentioned the short yardage thing. I sent out a tweet during the game. I was so frustrated. Is there an NFL team more afraid to run the ball on 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1 than the Bengals? And I'll just be just super frustrated. But yeah, I don't have an answer to that. I get frustrated. And you're right. Samaje Perine's 240, 245. I think he can get you 1 yard. But listen, the offense was efficient. They did have that in the first quarter. I think it was the first drive where they did.
It was.
It was the first drive that drove me bananas. But listen, they became really efficient. Like I said a few minutes ago, they won first down. That's the best the offense has looked since the Steeler game, I think. Or no, I shouldn't say that. Since the playoff games. I mean, they looked really, really smooth, and I just hope it continues.
Well, real quick, let's wrap this up and move on to the preview of the Falcons game. But before we do, listen to this absolutely insane stat, okay? Here we go. And this is from Jay Morrison. Thank you, Jay. We've had him on the show. I absolutely love Jay because he's like me. We love these crazy stats. Listen to this stat that Jay Morrison tweeted out. This is insane, Maan. Mm-hmm. Prior to Sunday, all right, prior to that Saints game, there have been 406 teams in the Super Bowl era who have given up at least 228 yards rushing, at least 26 points, and lost the turnover battle, right? The Bengals did all three. On Sunday, they lost the turnover battle. They gave up at least 26 points and at least 228 yards rushing, Mom. Before Sunday, teams that had given up those three things were 4 and 402, Mon. 4 wins, 402 losses before Sunday. Now it is 5 wins and 402 losses. Only, I think Jay said only out of those 5 teams, too, this is kind of crazy. Out of those 5 teams, the Bengals were involved in 2 of those games. 2 of them. They won the one on Sunday. In 1971, the Bengals were on the other side of it and lost to the Cleveland Browns. How crazy is that?
That is very crazy. I'm trying to pull up some of those other stats. Yeah, that is. And hey, you know what? I'll take it. A win's a win. And
but that just goes to show you how hard in the NFL it is to win. You look at 2 of those 3 things, how important they are: running the football and winning the turnover battle.
Yeah.
5 wins, 402 losses. That is insane. And luckily, our Bengals were on the winning end of that crazy stat. Let's go on to the Falcons, Mon. You touched on it. Falcons actually one of the top 5 rushing offenses and rushing defenses in the NFL. This is going to be a test for our Cincinnati Bengals. What do you think?
It is. Yeah, they're a little bit of old school. They ran the ball 40 times against the 49ers. I expect that again. Listen, they weren't very efficient running the ball, though. Like some of they're averaging 3.5, 3.4 yards per carry. I would take that. But the problem is Marcus Mariota had 6 rushes for 50 yards. He's a very athletic quarterback. He's not much of a thrower. He only threw the ball 14 times, completed 13 of them. I'm not really worried about their pass game, but their tight end, Kyle Pitts, is a special athlete. Yes. So if the Bengals go all out to stop the run, look out for him. I fully expect the time of possession game. This could be a very fast game because they're going to run the ball a lot. We just have to contain them. And again, you mentioned this week. You mentioned it on this episode, and last week you mentioned it. When it's 3rd and 8, 3rd and 12, that's my biggest gripe with the defense. We have got to force these teams to punt. Okay,
we have to.
I'm just sick and tired of 3rd and 7 conversions, 3rd and 8. They seem to be significant. Let's put it that way. I don't have the exact number, but just the eyeball test. It happened a few times against the Saints. That would give our offense more possessions, and we need to convert. We need to. We need to get these teams to punt. Their defense is really solid. They got a lot of good players. Listen, the name of the game with them is ball control. They're old school. They want to keep Jamar Chase. They want to keep Joe Burrow on the bench. They don't want them on the field. Grady Jarrett's a great defensive player. You know, the guy that was
involved in the Tom Brady.
Yeah, that horrible. He's a great player. AJ Terrell, the cornerback. I think he's from Clemson. He's a solid player too. Listen, they got good. I wasn't expecting much from the Falcons. Let's put it that way. For them to be 3-3 is surprising. But Arthur Smith, their coach, has done a good job. He was with the Titans for years. And what did they do in Tennessee? They ran the ball. They used the tight end a lot. Guess what? That's what Atlanta is doing right now. Bengals got to be ready for it. Being in Cincinnati, that's going to help us. I think the score is 3-0 already before the game even started. And I think you're going to be up there for that game. You got to bring home a win.
Well, this is the thing, Mon, is that the Bengals we just talked about. They got to start fast, right? You got to start fast especially against these teams that want to run the football. Teams that want to run the football, they don't want to be down 7-0, 10-0, 14-0. They don't want to be down because they're built to run the football. They're not built. Listen, if our defense and our offense puts together a game plan where Marcus Mariota has to beat us with his arm, this game could be a blowout because Marcus Mariota is not going to beat us with his arm. But the Bengals cannot allow this offense to get going, and the Bengals have to stay on the field offensively. They've got to put drives together. They've got to stay on the field, and they've got to put points on the board. I actually think they will. I think the Bengals are going to come out, and I think the Falcons will struggle. I think the Bengals defense is being called out a little bit. I think you're going to see this Bengals defense play up to its standard after what happened on Sunday. And I think this Bengals offense is rolling now. I really do. I don't want to sound like a homer. I don't want to try to be overly optimistic, but I saw a lot of good things on Sunday that I hadn't seen in weeks. This Bengals offense could be rolling now. And you said it before. Listen, Joe Burrow is dangerous, but when Joe Burrow is confident, he is out of this world dangerous. And I think you kind of see that confidence coming out of him now. But this Falcons team is not a team to overlook. They are a solid football team. And they got some explosive guys on that offense too. The Bengals are going to have to play good football on Sunday, but I do think they will. Let's get to our picks, Maan.
Yeah, real quick, Jake. I just want to say, isn't it funny? Like when we look at the schedule at the beginning of the year, you look at games. Oh, that's an easy win. Mm-hmm. Things change. You never know. Like the Falcons, hey, they're playing really solid football. Who's going to be the team in the second half of the schedule that we are afraid of? Maybe they're going to crumble. You never know. Yeah. But it's hard to tell. And you're right. I think the Falcons are going to be they're not going to be an easy out, but I think we win. But let's go to the predictions.
Well, I'll tell you real quick. I'll tell you a team that I was afraid of that. And that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Maan, that might be one of our easiest games. They looked atrocious. Again, I said earlier the Bengals might be the Steelers' only win. Well, thank you, Tampa, because I text my buddy who's a big Tampa fan. I texted him, I said, now you know what it's like to lose to the worst team in football. Now you know what I felt like.
Their offensive line is terrible. The Buccaneers, they are in turmoil, and I think it starts up front with them.
Well, let's get to the picks. Last week, now we both picked all the AFC North teams to lose, right?
Yep.
And but the Steelers somehow, again, I guess we talked about Tampa laid an egg, but oh my goodness, how did the Steelers win that football game? I have no idea. But once again, the Ravens lose, the Browns lose. I talked about last week, Maan, this division is just not very good, and the Bengals have got to take advantage of it. The Bengals should be running away with this division. It shouldn't even be close, Maan. Let's go. Here we go. Steelers, Dolphins. Maan, who do you have? Steelers, Dolphins.
I'm going to go with the home team. I'm going to go with the Dolphins winning this game. It's going to be an ugly, I'm going to say 17-10 Dolphins over the Steelers.
I have the Dolphins winning 24-13. I think the Steelers remember how bad they are. Browns, Ravens, Maan. Browns, Ravens. We kind of talked about this a little bit off air. You and I have different thoughts on this. I'll talk about that in just a second. But tell me, who do you think is going to win? Browns, Ravens.
I'm going to go with the home team again. I'm going to take the Ravens 21, Browns 10.
Okay. I have the Browns winning this 21-17. And we talked a little bit off air about this, Maan. You're pulling for the Ravens. Not again, we're not fans, but you're pulling for the Ravens in this. I'm pulling for the Browns, and we're looking at this two different ways. I'm looking at it as we still get to play the Browns twice. To me, it's much more important that the Ravens lose a divisional game since we're 0-2 and one of those losses against the Ravens. So for me, I kind of feel like the Browns. I think the Browns winning this game is more important to the Bengals than the Ravens winning it. What are your thoughts?
This may sound really, arrogant because the Ravens did beat us this year. I'm not afraid of the Ravens. I'm really not. We have 11 more games to go. Listen, the Browns lost 2 in a row at home. If they lose to the Ravens, that's going to be 3 in a row. They'll be demoralized. They're going to start, checking out. And I think, because we have to play them on Monday night, I want that team defeated. I want them down because I think it's going to make it easier for us to beat them in Cleveland on Monday Night Football. That's good. Listen, that's going to be a tough game because it's in prime time and Monday night. They're going to be jacked up. But if they lose to the Ravens, I think it'll help demoralize them. And you know what? It's pretty much going to knock them out of the race. It really is. I mean, the Browns will be out of the AFC North, and it's going to be a 2-team race. It's going to be the Ravens and the Bengals. Listen, we have 11 games to go. We play the Ravens one more time. I know you're worried about the AFC North record. I'm not worried about the Ravens. The Ravens should be on a 4-game losing streak right now if we didn't screw up that game against them. The Ravens have critical roster flaws that's going to come back and haunt them. They just signed Deshaun Jackson. Is that his name? Yeah, the wide receiver played for the Eagles.
Deshaun Jackson. Yeah.
That guy's like 78 years old. They signed him, and I mean they're desperate. They know what their roster flaw is, and it's at wide receiver. And listen, I sound like a homer. They beat us. I get it. I'm not afraid of them. I can't wait till we play them again. And I think the Bengals are going to win this division.
Well, yeah, I think they're going to win the division too. I do find it interesting. Don't you find it interesting though how we as fans, we're fans of the Bengals and we watch these AFC North games when the two teams are playing each other. And I think as fans, we kind of look at things differently, right? And I'm really interested, listeners, put in the comments what you guys think. Cleveland, Baltimore, who do you want to win and why? Because I find that very interesting how we look at things differently, right? I'm looking at it more as an analytical thing as far as where we sit, how many, right now we're a half a game back from the Ravens. And I know right now if the Bengals win on Sunday and the Ravens lose, the Bengals are now in first place by themselves. So I don't know. I'm finding it interesting. Listeners, tell us what you think. All right, here we go. The big game, Bengals, Falcons. Mon, who do you have?
It's going to be a close one. Bengals are going to win, but it's going to be a very close game. 24-19 Bengals.
Wow, that's a weird score too. 24-19. I have the Bengals winning 27-13. I said it before. I think this offense is moving in the right direction. I think the Bengals get up early. They start fast, finally. And I think the Ravens are playing catch-up. And I don't think the Ravens can play catch-up football with the Cincinnati Bengals. So Falcons. I have the Bengals winning. Falcons. Sorry. I was about to say I have the Cincinnati Bengals beating the Atlanta Falcons.
That's right.
27-13. Mon, this is episode 26. Isn't that crazy? 26. Episode 26. Listeners, if you like this podcast, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this podcast. Check us out on Apple, Stitcher, and Spotify, and all the other podcast platforms. If you enjoyed listening, please give us that 5-star review. We very much appreciate it. Follow us on Twitter at Bengals_Pulse9 and on Instagram at the same without the at Bengals_Pulse9. And once again, check out all the awesome pods right here on the Wincinnati Family Network. Mon, episode 26 in the books. The Bengals are 3-3. Hopefully, after Sunday, our Cincinnati Bengals are back in first place all by themselves. He is Mon. I am Jake. This is the Bengals Pulse. Hooday, Bengal fans. We will see you next week.
See ya.